Research from the Gates Foundation has found that students are pretty good at assessing how good their teachers are. Students know who the good teachers are, the ones that need to improve, and the ones who really struggle in the classroom. Being a bit of a risk taker, I decided to give this a go and see if a student survey could improve my teaching. I'm always looking for ways to improve my teaching, and it occurred to me that I rarely ask students what they thought of my teaching. When I think about it, we all ask colleagues, family and friends what they think about something, so why not ask the students we teach every day? I've always been scared to have my teaching open for judgment by students for the obvious reasons, but I thought it would be a positive experience to do it at least once. Just before giving out the survey, I was very nervous at the idea of allowing my students to rate my teaching. This fear was shared by a number of colleagues too. But I went ahead with it anyway, and the outcome was positive. Before I share the outcome with you, here are a few tips for you to think about when designing your own survey. I would strongly suggest you research best practice for children's surveys. It's actually a surprisingly complex task and needs planning before you give the survey out. So, here are 3 things you need to know. 1. Keep the questions short. Don't ask long-winded questions and make the language as easy as possible to understand. 2. It helps to have a preface statement before the main question. For example, I would ask a question like, "Some children agree with this and others do not. What do you think?" This allowed students to consider what their thoughts were on the question and allowed them to answer it better. 3. Try not to ask leading questions. So, for example, a leading question is, how often does your teacher shout at the class? Instead, use a question like, tell me about a time when your teacher shouted. How did that make you feel? This allows the students to think about their own experience and feelings. You're not leading them to an answer. This is by no means a definitive list of questions you should ask. All I would say is plan the survey and get to know what you want to get out of it. And lastly, don't ask any more than 10 questions. They get bored. So, I completed the survey and gave it out to the students. To my surprise and relief, responses were pretty balanced. There were some areas that were a shock to me, and this became my area for improvement. For example, 3 students mentioned I don't tend to apologise when I misunderstand a situation or get something wrong. You can imagine my shock and embarrassment that some of my Year 7 students had the insight to tell me about this. They described it as feeling like they were always wrong, and this led to mistrust. Pretty deep stuff, so this became my main focus over the next few weeks. Learning to be aware of my mistakes and misunderstandings in the classroom would ultimately help me improve my relationships with students. The survey served one purpose. I wanted to improve my teaching through the eyes of my students. I wanted to develop a better understanding of how I came across each day and with each group of students. The outcome of the survey was never going to make me mark better or develop my subject knowledge, but it will make me stop and think about how I teach and how I come across to all of my students. I plan on using this survey twice a year to develop the soft skills a teacher needs, and I'm hoping this allows me to engage with my students better and build stronger relationships with them. Thanks for listening.